Greetings, my name is Darveon Ricketts, a student of Belmont Academy, or should I say, a graduate of Belmont Academy from Westmoreland. I am vying for the presidential office of the National Secondary Students Council. I'll give you a quote, and it says, "There are people who depend on you to be strong, those who look up to you with great hope." End of quote. I'll ensure to give my full service, proper leadership skills, and inspire strategy which reside at the center of my thoughts to always display service with pride, to lead with confidence and inspire to impact lives. That strategy is the art of a true student council rep, which will thus constitute an effective reign if elected as national president. The office of the national president requires excellent communication skills, a trait which I possess and will ensure to channel that to the benefit of the NSSC by making it my civic duty and responsibility to advocate for the youth of Jamaica. Also, to create an advanced platform that will include easier access between the national executives and the local council, which will incorporate unity and cohesion, thus inclusivity of all regions so as to alleviate exclusion which now exists. Which now exist. When there is inclusivity, it gives a sense of equality and a sense of being valued. Once the region get that sense of being valued, their respect is inevitable. This will indeed give each region equal opportunity, making none feel superior to the other. Because of this pandemic, there has been a lot of unemployment in the working sector. This being said, our second priority is to ensure that taxi fare does not increase. As the council, we will prepare a draft to the respective ministry outlining to them the strain COVID caused on the pockets. A pandemic has struck, not overlooking that. But how do we contribute to ensure that there be no more recurrence of this laid-back, unprepared educational system? 4 years ago, the educational system introduced tablets in school. As a student who had been a part of this experience, I, along with other stakeholders, can say it was impactful. This being said, our third priority is advocate for a technological educational system. I will endorse, enhance, and introduce the Student Council debating competition as a national activity for the council. I pledge to work close with my team to have a cohesive council, ensuring that all objectives be met within corresponding targets and timeline. We will promote an effective participation of students matter affecting their interests by making an effective representation. We will ensure that all public secondary institutions, students' voices are heard. With the help of God, all these mandates will be met. Vote Ricketts, don't take risk. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricketts. Now we will have Mr. Deshawn Jackson from the Wolmer's Boys School, who is also vying for the post of national president. Mr. Jackson, please go ahead.
I am Deshawn Jackson, a student of the Wolmer's Boys High School, and I'm vying for the position of national president. An esteemed evening, colleagues. I am Deshawn Jackson, a Wolmerian candidate vying for the post of national president. It is indeed a great honor to stand before the nation's youth leaders as I present myself as a competent agent of service who is ready to take up the mantle to lead the NSSC as president. I am your servant leader who will channel my passions and ambition to serve you to the fullest. Margaret Mead, a renowned cultural anthropologist, said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." I say this to reassure you of the power we hold as student leaders as we continue to build the future for students and build students for the future. It is through this vision that I aspire to commit to the responsibility responsibility of enacting change for us. I acknowledge the power and the privilege we hold to voice our concerns on matters affecting us as a student body. I will present 2 aspects of my 5-fold manifesto to solidify my vision for the NSSC if elected president. 1. Regional telecommunication service improvements. The new norm is virtual education. There are students across remote regions who are deprived of internet connection. A collaboration with telecommunication service providers to negotiate data plans which will be available as long as online education exists. This plan will offer access to educational platforms, which we will negotiate an affordable rate that is manageable for all of us. My team and I will draft a proposal to the relevant stakeholders and conduct meetings to present and persuade the providers of the necessity of this program. With our strong belief and faith in God, we will succeed. Secondly, youths with common goals. Jamaica has the most active youth leadership organizations in the Caribbean. Practicing interdependence instead of independence to achieve common goals is a strategy for effective advocacy and action. Our NSSC is a well-established organization. However, there's room for improvement. You can hold me, Action Jackson, responsible for the mandate to do what is best for you all if elected president. It is with these plans, amongst others, complemented with my passion, optimistic determination, and a fighting spirit that I urge you to vote Action Jackson to be your president. We need to become more resilient. I refuse to sit back while the rights and privileges of youth continue to be violated. Most will talk, but I am the leader who will run with you. And if I can't run, I will walk or even crawl. However, I will hold out to the end. Remember, Action with Team Jackson is my promise. So vote Action Jackson for president. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. We will now have Cheslan Douglas from the DeCarteret College. My apologies. Right, so Ms. Cheslan Douglas also vying for the post of national president.
My name is Cheslan Douglas. I attend DeCarteret College High School and I am running for National Secondary Students Council's president. A pleasant good day to you all. My name is Cheslan Douglas, a worthy candidate vying for the presidency of the NSSC. Let me start by saying leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. And through my presidency, we will make this vision a reality. Based on my experience in leadership and the NSSC, I know what must be done and should be done for the job at hand. As president, I aim to integrate new initiatives into local councils by encouraging them to engage in new activities. These activities include spirit weeks, rallies, and various types of campaigns. Secondly, I will revamp current NSSC social projects. These social projects involve an island-wide anti-bullying campaign, which will dispatch student counselors to work with peer counselors to have sessions with bullies and those affected. Another plan of mine is to increase leadership training for local councils. This plan will allow more local councillors to understand their roles and responsibilities. Also, I will create an island-wide directory by creating emails for various councils across the island. This will ease the communication between the NSSC and local councils. As president, I will propose to the new executive that during the discussion of the Education Act amendment, we should propose a new step to disciplinary reform. Currently, students are being inflicted by punishments rather than being trained in discipline. Therefore, we will propose a new way to conduct detentions and suspensions, where you will still receive a consequence. However, it will be accompanied by a restoration method. We are experiencing an epidemic where student councils are undermined by their administration. And through my presidency, we will correct it. I implore you to vote for this vision. Vote for this change. Vote for Cheslan Douglas. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheslan Douglas, and I am happy that I've gotten the correct pronunciation of your name. Okay, so we're going to move now into the Q&A section. You will only receive 2 questions for the Q&A section, and you will have a maximum of 40 seconds to answer each question. I will indicate who should answer first, and I guess second and third. So we will. Okay, so we will begin. What do you think should be NSSC's top priority for the upcoming academic year? We begin with Mr. Douglas.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Williams. I believe the top priority for the NSSC in the upcoming school year is ensuring that every single president or at least one representative from the council sits on the school board. From my experience as a Region 5 Assistant Vice President, a lot of students did not even get invited to their school boards, which is in violation of the Education Act. Therefore, our #1 priority is enforcing the Education Act Section 32 and ensuring every student council has a representative on their school board.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you for that question. The top priority for the NSSC this year is to focus on the students. Under the Child Care and Protection Act or provision rights where all students deserve to be educated, have the right to be educated. Now seeing that this current pandemic is impeding our education, where not all students will have access to online education. And if we don't have physical contact in schools, they won't be able to attend classes. No, we cannot allow this right of the children to be violated in any way. So therefore, as I said in my manifesto, promoting to improve the telecommunication services, the Wi-Fi connection, and for those who don't have anything to use, we will provide lasering on with our national candidate PRO's idea for the drive for laptop and devices. And I believe that is how we will be able to execute this plan, and that should be our top priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ricketts.
I believe that the top priority for the NSSC should be this year to build effective communication. Effective communication is very important because if there is no proper communication, there will be no effective way of advocating for the students. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ricketts. So we move now to the second question. What experiences have prepared you for the role of president? Please be as specific as possible and also outline in terms of your results. So I would really appreciate if you do not just outline to us positions that you have held, but rather to note the results as well that you have had in those respective positions. And we'll start with Mr. Jackson.
I am not new to nation building. As a junior council of the KSMC project manager, I have been in charge to carry out well-executed plans, considering all the contingencies, and therefore having results that really are impacting. And an event such as that was our back to school treat, social intervention treat last year, where we tried to provide back to school supplies, social interventions such as TRN services, passport services in the Trenchtown community to give those residents an equal opportunity to get those necessary documents that are important, and also to help the children in the community. Other capacities that is needed to be the next president of the NSSC. At my previous school as president of the student council, one of the most pressing matters was the quality and the standard of the lunch that were provided for students. I worked relentlessly to improve that, and I did achieve that objective. And so I know those capacities that I've served in and the results that I've gained, it has equipped me now for this responsibility of national president of the NSSC. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ricketts, your turn.
Thank you very much. Over the years, I've served in many offices, such as the Jamaica Millennium Vision for Youth, where I have served as Region 4 coordinator. And during that office, during my service, I have contributed to the Westmoreland Infirmary, where we have went on to help to make the environment a better one. Also, I have served as student council president for my year when I was in third form. My impact that I left was that I ensured that students had the voice, students' voice were heard, and I ensure that I advocate for them. And at the end of my reign, I felt pleased with the results because persons came back to me and told me that I have served as a very effective student council president. And there are many more, but I'll just leave you with those two.
Okay, Mr. Ricketts. Now, Mr. Douglas, your turn.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Williams. When I was in fourth form, I was elected the first ever treasurer of the Mount St. Joseph Catholic High School Student Council, where I worked hand in hand with our president to ensure that we met with the principal so that we could have permission to host events and we could have our very own account for the student council to keep our money in. The following year, when I was in fifth form, I was elected the president of the student council for Mount St. Joseph High School, and I advocated for every single student. In fourth form, we were not invited to the board meeting, but in fifth form, I ensured that we were present at the board meetings. And recently, I am the outgoing NSSC Region 5 Executive, Assistant Vice President to be specific, where we improved our communication between the presidents of Region 5 and the NSSC. We held meetings to explain their roles and responsibilities so they could work effectively. And we advocated for every single student across the region that we could reach out to.
Okay, all right, so that ends our Q&A section. And now we'll be moving to our debate section, is a little bit different. So the rules of this, let me outline them. So I will read a question, and then you have the right to respond by utilizing the raise hand, I would say the raise hand option on your, whether it be on your phone or your tablet, laptop, etc. Miss Lawrence will be helping me in finding out or determining who would have raised their hand first, and then who comes second, who comes third, and you will respond. In your response, you also have the right to provide counter arguments. So for example, if Mr. Douglas went first and he answered, then when Mr. Ricketts or they can raise their physical hand. Okay, well, I guess I can't see all of them on my screen, so I guess Miss Lawrence will help me with that. Right, so whoever comes after will have the right to do a counter argument. If Mr. Douglas went first and Mr. Ricketts responds to him and he decides that he wants to counter again, he also have that right. What we will do is that we'll allow for 1 minute and 30 seconds to run for each question. It will be asked a total of 3 questions. So you're not mandated to answer and you're not mandated to counter. It's your choice if you want to respond or if you want to counter or if you want to leave the question as is, if you don't want to participate. That is your right. But just to remember, you have the right to answer and you also have the right to counter and you have the right to remain silent if you wish to. So is everyone clear on the instructions?
Yes, Ms. Williams.
Okay, I heard one voice. Other voices?
Yes, Ms.
Clear.
Williams.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. So the first question. The education regulation is up for review. What change would you want to see made and how will this improve the livelihood of students across Jamaica? The education regulation is up for review. What change would you want to see made and how will this improve the livelihood of students across Jamaica? The floor is now open. All right, Mr. Deshawn, go ahead.
So thank you again. So as stated in my manifesto, on my first point where the CHC Cape regulation measures, we've realized COVID-19 have forced us to realize that we are not prepared for the unprecedented unprecedented times. Therefore, I would recommend measures to be put in place for these situations for students, or in order for the students of Jamaica's health and are not, or their lives are not at risk. For example, when we had the Tivoli incursion, students had to still go out into CXC examinations, because if they didn't, they would have passed or failed the exam because they would have been absent. So it is things like these that Jamaica need to put measures in place specifically for us and the students, because we have to remember that the ministry should work in the best interest of the students, and therefore in working with in the best interest of the students, we have to ensure that we're protecting their lives and their health is not at risk, even if it's a crucial exam. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas, go ahead.
Oh, thank you for that question, Ms. Williams. But we should remember that the Education Act allows for us to have elected student councillors sit on the school board and be notified of suspensions. So when the discussion begins to amend the act, what I would bring to the table after careful discussion with my executives is that we have sanctions for principals who do not notify their councils when a school board meeting will be held, or they don't notify the councils when there's a suspension to be issued. And I will also add that when issuing suspensions, that there should be some method of, well, let me just say, rehabilitation method. So, because when you get suspended, you can go home, loiter all over the streets. Instead, if we have a rehabilitation method such as career development and such, we will see a change in how our students behave going further in the future.
And the time has been terminated or have expired for that question. We move to question 2. The Child Care and Protection Act of 2004 has 3 core areas: provision, protection, and participation. What right do you believe is of most importance to children? The Child Care and Protection Act of 2004 has 3 core areas: provision, protection, and participation. What right do you believe is of utmost importance to children? Darveon?
I believe that the utmost important one is the right of participation. It is important that students have the right to participate in decision-making process. And when students have the right to participate in decision-making process, it gives a sense of inclusivity. It gives a sense of hearing what the student have to say on his or her side or their sides.
Cheslan?
Yes, I agree with Darveon. The most important to me is the right to participation, because it is our core function as a student council. So I believe that it is the most important, because we should be there for discussions of policies that affect our education, because we are the ones who are going to feel any policy that is put forward for education.
Okay, Deshawn?
I refuse to agree that one is more important, because all of these rights are important. We need children to be protected. We need provisions for them to have a good standard of life for survival, growth, and development. And we need their voices to be heard at decisions that impact them. So I won't agree with my opponents to say that one right is more important than the other, because they all work hand in hand in the best interest of the student. So we need to be protected. There needs to be provisions in place for us to be protected and live a good life. And also we need to have a right to participate in anything that affects us as students and children of Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you. The time has expired on that question. Third and final question. COVID-19 has resulted in many schools shifting their classes online, or based on what we're seeing, they'll be shifting to blended learning for some schools. If you become president, outline one recommendation that is necessary to improve the learning experience for students. COVID-19 has resulted in many schools shifting their classes online or to blended learning. If you become president, outline one recommendation to improve the learning experience for students. Mr. Ricketts.
Okay, as stated in my manifesto, one of my main objectives is to advocate for a technological educational system. That being said, I believe the recommendation that I would make is to advocate to ensure that the educational system, secondary level, all students are introduced to tablets in schools. That would help better learning process.
Thank you. I have not seen anyone else indicate their willingness to speak. Should I take it that no one is going to speak aside from Mr. Ricketts? Okay, Mr. Douglas, go ahead.
Well, in regards to that question, for this part about students, we should have students at home who are able to go on online classes. However, what we should do to extend on that is to train teachers who don't know how to conduct classes online, so that for those who do stay home on our online classes, the teachers will know how to effectively teach them over the internet.
Thank you. Deshawn?
Yes, as stated in my manifesto, we need to first ensure that all the students have access to the online education. So whenever it is that they're not at school, if it is a case that some days they will be and some days they won't, there need to be protocols and measures put in place so those students can have the resources to be able to attend those classes. So we can liaison on with the Minister of Education, where he was trying to provide devices for the students, but we need to ensure that all the students have access and resources to attend these classes, because we cannot allow any student to be left behind, or it be a case that only 2 days a week or so students will have class, and that will be because they attend.
Okay, thank you. Time has expired on that question. And that culminates our debate. Section 3 questions were asked, which the 3 candidates have the opportunity to respond to, providing their own opinions as well as counter arguments. And that also ends the entire